Hello, everyone. My name is Ned Dennison. I'm the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. A little while ago, we had a first in our sport. The first man to swim a two-way North Channel, first swimmer to start in Northern Ireland, go to Scotland and come back. Sarah Thomas was the first to do a two-way, but she started in Scotland. And the record for youngest North Channel swimmer and not necessarily a record, but joined the 24-hour club. So, Brian Foster, please say hello.
Hello, are we getting on?
Doing just fine. Tell us, Brian, about your early swimming days from kind of under the age of 10. Did your father teach you how to swim? How did this all come about?
Not really. I suppose, we live 10 minutes away from Sandy Cove, so we would have locally dipped, but we never learned anything technical. We're never a competitive swimmer by any means until, I suppose when I was about 11, we were just dipping regularly in Sandy Cove, and I tried my hand at my first lap of Sandy Cove. And I was 11, so that was 2019. And then I saw the local Sandy Cove Island lappers, and I suppose it inspired me. I didn't know any of their names, but I saw them lapping, and it looked interesting. So I suppose I kind of just kept going, and and yeah, that's pretty much it. The rest is history.
So, for those who aren't aware, Brian is referring to Sandy Cove Island. It's a training location in Kinsale, County Cork, Ireland, on the south coast. Um, and your father famously did Gibraltar several years ago. Did it
You did.
inspire you? Were you too young? Did it mean anything?
I suppose I was six and nothing to do with swimming, so it didn't really register. It doesn't really register with most adults who don't swim, so it wouldn't register with the 6-year-old who doesn't swim. Um, yeah.
You kind of caught our attention locally in about 2011 when you were getting ready to do your 100th lap of Sandy Cove. We got the local newspaper down. It's a very embarrassing picture of you looking about 6 years old at the time. Um, Tell us about some of that early publicity. Was it a good thing? Were you embarrassed? Did your schoolmates kid you about it?
Um, I didn't really make much of it. It wasn't the article. It wasn't really my thing. It was more about the community, the swimming community. That's what inspired me more than anything else. Everyone was very supportive. They were very generous in all their advice and all their encouragement. So it was more that than anything else, as opposed to anything from the media.
And tell us about your first couple of 10K marathons.
So my first 10K was in Majorca in Bestfest. But that was warm, fairly good conditions. My first proper open water 10K was around the Old Head, and that was organized by Rob Bahan, and he managed to, get a boat, and he was very generous in giving in that. And I swam it with Haley Cullinan. So that was my first real kind of marathon open water experience, I would say, where I got a real taste for it.
And Best Fest for people who are not aware is one of 25 to 50 long distance swimming events, camps around the world. I hear good things about just about all of them. You put 5, 10, 20, 50 people together with a common interest, and you usually are going to have a pretty good result. The 10K that Brian was talking about locally goes from Sandy Cove Island out around the old head of Kinsale. It's a very famous golf course, kind of the Pebble Beach of Ireland. Currents are nasty, and when you look up at the old head, you see the rocks are all twisted, and it's an incredible place to be swimming. So that's a great place to do it. You swam Catalina last year, which
Mm.
is your first sort of big, well-known marathon. Why Catalina first instead of Manhattan or English Channel or something else?
Um, I suppose the English Channel, it's 16 is the minimum age. And I felt that I was ready to do something channel distance, and Catalina you can do at a younger age. And also, I'd heard a few stories from Distance Week. And, I remember talking to Matthias one day about Catalina. And the idea of it just grabbed me, it intrigued me. And I just went away and we booked it. And yeah.
And you for this summer you booked both the English Channel and the North Channel. It's unusual for people to do both of them in the same year. What was the idea? What was the inspiration? How did you come up with that combination?
Well, I suppose training for one is training for the other. You know, if you're fit, and my English channel was booked for early in the season anyway, you know, it made perfect sense that if there was excess time and I trained that year, that I'd be fit to do another one. And the North Channel was one that I wanted to do. Like also, actually, Matthias grabbed my attention with that one when the first court distance week I met him, and then later in CDW in 2022 when Sarah Thomas was over and she did her double. And I remember tracking her for her double North Channel in the last day distance. It was, wow. And that really inspired me. And then it was kind of in my mind from then. So yeah, I booked it shortly after Catalina, I think.
So Brian would have met Matthias Kasner, the famous marathon swimmer from Berlin at Court Distance Week, and also Sarah Thomas literally popped by, I
Yeah.
think last year or something after her North Channel to say hello to people, and that just having those kinds of people around is always good for inspiration. What sparked the idea of a two-way North Channel? Was it Sarah? Was it something else?
It was, so I suppose the first, there's a dream and there's a plan. So there's an idea you get into your head, and then there's actually booking it. They're two very different things. And I think the dream came to me when, yeah, exactly, when we were tracking Sarah Thomas and during court distance week, and she made the turn, and that was very inspirational. But then it was only ever just again a dream. And then I suppose I was going well in my training, and we booked a one way, and it's going well in my training. I kind of emerged in conversation with Jacqueline from Infinity that they'd be willing to entertain a two way. I wanted to do one, and we were getting the mileage done, so I felt like it was, you know, within my range. So we booked it.
And when was that month wise?
I suppose
Roughly.
the first conversation would have been spring, but we also kind of said I want to see how we get on after the English Channel, and then we'll have a proper conversation. And after the English Channel, I got out in France, and a lot of energy. Like I felt strong. The arms felt good. It wasn't, there was no drama. It was a good crossing, and so I said, yeah, there's more in me. So kind of confirmed with Jacqueline that yeah, the double is something I want to do. It's something that I want to give a good shot at. So
And it was a fairly well-kept secret. What
yeah,
was
yeah.
your plan on that? Did you tell a few people and swear you'd kill them if they told anybody else, or how did you keep it under wraps?
Well, I suppose I told my crew, and I trust my crew. So if I trust them, I trusted them to keep it quiet. And I just didn't want to talk about the second lap because I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself. You know, it was quite nerve-wracking already having to deal with it myself. I didn't need any external pressure. So I just told the people that would be, you know, involved in the double plans, and they kept it at that. And yeah, I was happy.
And walk us through the actual North Channel swim. Um, at one
It
point
was a long swim.
you were supposed to go up, and the weather was bad, and you didn't go up, and you were looking a bit miserable. What was that?
Yeah,
What was
that
it?
was
Bring us through the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of timing.
it was a very just complete head wreck of a week. So you get your daily updates from Infinity Channel Swimming, and it was a complete emotional roller coaster. And it was the weather; you can't do anything about it. But it was nonetheless, it was a head wreck. So you're getting the daily updates, and it was going, you know, maybe Friday, maybe Sunday might be swimmable, but a one way only. And then it was one of the days, it was no swimmable days for the window. And that completely just destroyed me. And then the next day was there's a swimmable day. And the day after that, it was no swimmable day. So it was a complete roller coaster. And then we had a discussion with Jacqueline and Padraig on Friday. And I think Padraig said, oh, the weather's just, you know, I've only after looking since 4 o'clock, but it's gotten better. So I'm willing to entertain the double again. So that was great news. Nerve wracking, but also there was kind of relief that we were getting a bit more certainty with the weather. But it was still was fairly uncertain. Like even driving up, it was a bit tentative. We never really knew what was going to happen. And even when we started the swim, we never fully knew that the weather would be there for a second lap. It was, we got it done. So
So the drive's what, about 6 hours?
I think 5 hours.
Okay. And looked a pretty good day going over weather-wise. Fairly
Yeah,
smooth,
it
not a
was
lot
good.
of jellyfish.
Yeah.
There were 5 swimmers in the water.
Hmm.
You seem to be a little quicker than all of them, which probably made you happy.
Yeah, it did.
You landed on a beach, which wasn't a cliff, which is always nice.
Yeah.
And then you kind of, as you were swimming back to the boat, there were a few of us wondering what was going to happen next. We've slapped Anthony, who asked on social media, "Is the cat out of the bag yet?" And then you did a video. So talk to us about the video. Was it a plan, or how did that come about?
Uh, was the video that we recorded the plan?
Yeah,
I suppose we made the turn, and it was the idea was, it was we were making the turn unless the weather was, you know, let us or made us so we couldn't do the turn. And Finbar said, right, let everyone know what you're doing at the next speed. So I was spending the next half hour trying to think of something, witty to say at the next speed. And then when Finbar, pulls out his phone, he says, right, your adoring fans are waiting your response. I just said, oh, there was a ladder malfunction. So yeah.
it was a classic video, and then social media kind of erupted, going, "What is happening?" And a few people said, "Well, this was his dream." Brian, what I'd like to do now is I would like to talk about some of the reasons for your success, what was behind it, and I'd
Mm,
also like to kind of do an unfair contrast, right? I'd like to imagine a 40-year-old swimmer from Iowa, which is the middle of the United States, single parent, uh, 3 children, working full time outside of the house. The nearest lake is an hour drive away. In the winter, it's frozen. In the summer, it's warm. It's definitely fresh water, and time is precious. I kind of contrast that, and now come back to 16-year-old Brian Foster. Talk to us about the factors that you made you a success, and people can make their own comparison to this mythical person I've made up.
Well, I suppose there's a few variables in that. For one, it's time. There wasn't much responsibilities other than, telling Eilish that you got your minimum 35K for that week, and that was kind of my focus.
She was your coach,
And
Eilish Burns, who's
Eilish
who's
Burns, yeah,
an honoree in the Ireland Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame, and she's coached about 25 channel swimmers.
yeah. And I suppose my parents were very supportive, very willing, always willing to drive you to a Sandy Cove a session, whatever. The community was very supportive. So there was a whole load of variables. Also, Sandy Cove is a great training ground for the North Channel. You get huge variety of conditions. Like you get calm on the inside of the island, or on a good day you get calm all around the island. But you also get very lumpy conditions. You get big rollers on corner one. You get chop on a northerly between corner 2 to 3. There's always a different day in Sandy Cove, and I thought that was good preparation. It kind of prepares you for all aspects of channel swimming.
So this island, the natural course is about 1,600 meters, about a mile. Um, there between May and in September, water temperature is what, 11 to 14 degrees, something like that Celsius.
Yeah.
Rarely higher than that. You can experience a 4-degree Celsius temperature difference around the island. So one moment it feels really nice, and the next moment there's a bit of a cold spot. Variable tides, currents, and every lap is simply different. I think the other thing that people remark on is if you're training up and down a beach, it's kind of easy to stop. But when you're going around an island, at a certain point, you make a mental and physical commitment to the course. And in the case of Sandy Cove Island, what we call corner 3 is you come around corner 3, and if you turn a certain amount, you're headed back to the slipway. If you take another stroke and turn a little bit more to your left, you kind of mentally commit to another lap.
Yeah.
So it's harder to get out. It's also worth mentioning, Brian, you didn't mention it, is you had a year which we called it, was it called a gap year?
TY, transition year.
Transition year. For the American viewers, this is basically you almost have a year off from school to play around. I know there's more to it than that, but you were able to swim twice a day if you wanted.
Yeah, yeah, more or less. Yeah, I was had a lot of free time. That was a huge part of it too. You know,
And
a
you're and
60K week wasn't difficult to do time wise. You know, it was never a question of can I get this done because of time. It was just can I get the 60K done because it's 60K.
the drive from your for your parents was 10 minutes each way.
Yeah, exactly.
And your
Well,
parents had some flexibility in their schedule.
yeah, yeah,
Um, you you did a long day where you set our Sandy Cove record. Was it 23 laps?
yeah. 10 hours, 23 laps. Yeah.
And you also did you did more night swimming than most people. A lot of marathon swimmers do a couple of night swims and they go, okay, that's fine. I've done my night swim. My observation is that if you start at 3 in the morning and you swim into the sunrise or even the light, it's emotionally uplifting. But to
Mm,
swim into the dark is emotionally terrible. It's
yeah,
just soul destroying. And you did some of that training.
I did. And I did both. I did swimming into the dark, you know, particularly on winter laps of Sandy Cove when the darkness would roll in quite early. You'd be finishing in the dark a lot of the times. And then also dark swims swimming in the light. And they were long swims in the dark too. They weren't 1 lap or 2 laps of the island. I think the longest I did was I did a 4 hour starting at 3 a.m. And so, you know, it was more than just tolerating the dark. It was getting comfortable at swimming in the dark. And I suppose that's why I did quite a bit of it.
I say to people that training for a big channel swim when you're absolutely alone is really tough. And the
Mm,
alone is more than just you're the only one there. In your case, when you needed to do a 10, 15, 20, what was it, 28K pool swim,
mm,
you weren't fighting a bunch of people in a lane at open swim. You had marathon swimmers in the water with you, so you claimed a lane.
mm.
But I want to walk through sort of this the community at Sandy Cove Island and kind of go through what you got out of it. And I guess the first one for me is when you appeared at age 11 or whatever you were already swimming with more than 10 English Channel swimmers who had done swims around the world. Um,
Yeah.
so that was, you could look at them and you go, well, they don't look that good. They don't look that fast, or they don't look that tough. But it gave you folks to focus on and to learn from.
Yeah, it did. It was inspiring more than anything. Because there were so many English Channel soloists around the place that it was kind of normalized that it was never something that felt unattainable. It was always something that felt like, look, all these people have done it and they're great swimmers. But it's clearly a realistic goal if multiple people here in Sandy Cove have done it. And they were all great in giving advice. They were all great in giving support. So yeah, it was inspiring.
So you would show up, there'd be other people getting ready to swim. You'd head off, a group of 10 of you. Um, when you did your 100th lap, you got a reward cap that said 100 laps. It seemed only a short time later, you got your 500 lifetime laps, you got your 1,000 lifetime laps, you got a
Mm.
10K cap, you got a 25K cap. There were Friday morning cake mornings with rewards and announcements and prizes for people who had done things. How important was all of that to you to be that in that kind of community?
I think it was important because I like challenges. I like setting goals for myself. I'm goal orientated, and I think things like the lap leaderboard that we have, you know, is motivating you, putting up your laps. The caps, obviously, did you certain milestones. So yeah, I suppose it's sort of a healthy camaraderie and competitive rivalry between people that kind of spurs you on. And I suppose that's important. You know, it keeps you going, keeps things interesting.
Yeah, my contribution to Brian's success potentially was that I was clearly his focus in 2022. It was,
Correct.
I'm going to beat Ned this year. every stroke, every lap, every time. We had two big races that year, and through craft and guile, I put the young fella in his place, but it hasn't happened since. And it was interesting to see that Brian was so focused on me for that period of time, and I
Mm.
think it helped him. Court distance week, we let you in 2024 and 2025. You were by far the youngest. 80 people from around the world. We mentioned Matthias, Sarah Thomas came to visit. Part of Court Distance Week is there's a towel with about 160 names of people who have swum the English Channel and also done a lap of Sandy Cove. Their Triple Crown dinner with people with special shirts and hoodies and actual crowns made of plastic, I have to add. So that was an interesting environment for you to swim with all those bodies in the water, all with different experiences.
It definitely was. Um, yeah, I suppose in 2022 it was a big year. It was chasing you, and I was able to beat you on the laps, but didn't quite have it in Shirkin or didn't quite have it in the Island Challenge. I may have got ran into a fear on one of those races by fault of my own sighting. But yeah, and the CDW in 2022, that was quite a pivotal moment. I did the old head, the week after Court Distance Week.
Yeah.
That was a big year of progress. I gathered a lot of speed in that year, and I suppose the year after, then it was chasing more and more people. It was all healthy rivalry. It was all good crack, but it was fun having the odd race around the islands.
And then when it came time for your crew in the North Channel, we talk about crew in the sport, and most people say it's not a solo sport; it involves a crew. And then some really fantastic swimmers might go out and really not have anybody in their crew that know them or know what they're
Yeah,
about. But for other people, the crew is really important. You had your father, who's been on all of your swims. You had Finbar Hederman, who swam the North Channel and the English Channel. You had
Andy was helping.
Carol Cashel, who's a triple crown swimmer. And Carol and Finbar, you would have trained with 100 times, 200 times
Many times.
over the last few years. So they knew you pretty well.
Yeah, I was out in California with Finbar too for the bones of 2 weeks for our Catalina swims. So knew him well, knew Carol well, trained with her a lot. She was always great for giving the advice. So two people I knew well, I knew I could trust, were very supportive. Carol was on my English Channel crew along with my dad and Donna. And I wanted Finbar for the North Channel experience too. He's done a lot of swims and particularly the North Channel. So yeah, it was the dream team really. Couldn't have asked for a better crew. It was perfect.
I want to talk a little bit about your experience with Coach Eilish Burns. You were in a group of swimmers. She gave you some goals and put you on the phone calls and the pool sessions together, and you had to make your weekly confessions on, did you
Yeah.
make the targets?
So it was Eilish and it was a group. It was Paul, Dave, Anthony, Jonathan. It was a group. We all helped each other. If you couldn't make it for a 25K that somebody had to do, you could make it for the first 10K or the last 5K. And it was all very supportive and all very giving. And that was big. We we helped each other. We spurred each other on. And Eilish was brilliant. She all kept us in shape. She all made sure we were hitting our targets, so that we left no stone unturned when the big day came. So it
And
was it was a good group and it was a good year. And she's a
and,
brilliant coach. So
and did you buy into, if I do Eilish's program, I have every chance of success? Was that just a mindset for you?
well, I knew it was tried and tested. I knew she coached Lisa Cummins on her double English channel. So when it came time to the double North channel, I knew she had experience with these things. I knew this was, highly experienced coach. So yeah, I trusted it, and I knew that it was foolproof. You get the training done, you can withstand the miles.
One of the things worth mentioning is that when you finally got in the water in Northern Ireland, Infinity had 5 swimmers in the water that day.
Mm.
There was a small weather window. It had been crap before that. There was a window on the Sunday. They put 5 swimmers in the water. They've invested over the past couple of years, certainly 6 figures in boats, especially for these kinds of swims. And if you go back 20 years ago, there was 1 boat.
Mm.
So if Infinity had only had 2 boats, you might have been third preference or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think kudos to Infinity. You
oh,
also
absolutely.
had experienced pilots on board.
Podrick, he was superb. Yeah, we had a great crew on board. Well, on shore too. Like Jacqueline was brilliant in her communication. Podrick was a superb pilot. You know, Anna, Barry, Ruth, Jenny, everyone on board Infinity. A great association. You know, they're wholeheartedly in it. Like they want you to get the swim done. They want to see you succeed. I think that's important. I really do.
Infinity also run one of these distance camps. It's called Hit the Wall. You've been several times. It's
Hmm.
everything from sitting in an ice bath to doing some swims in colder water than most people.
Yeah, yeah, it was but I went twice, so both years were very good training years. I think the important thing too that was good about Hit the Wall is I met people who were more similar to age that were doing marathon stuff also. So Jessica Robson in 2023, this year Jessica Robson, Oscar Black, Daniel Smith. I think that's important too. Uh, and they were similar speed too, so that was handy. And they were both character building weekends. Like it's not warm water, so to do a 6 hour in 13 odd degrees, that's good training. It's conducive to training for the North Channel, and particularly this year was character building because I had food poisoning for the weekend, so I had to drag myself through. But I got it done on good company and adrenaline. So
Okay. Um, Social media. Um, you talked, I mentioned briefly, kind of following Sarah Thomas North Channel when she made the turn. I think you probably had met Dr. Caroline Block before, who had famously was the first person to go for those 2 ways in anger, and she's probably not done. How important was following people like Sarah Thomas and other people on social media for you?
it was very important. It was very important. Uh, seeing people who do great things is always motivating. You know it can be done. So the idea of a two-way North Channel wouldn't have even been a concept to me if I hadn't seen, Sarah Thomas do it. It's the idea if somebody does it, then you can conceive it, then you can wrap your head around it. It makes sense. I suppose Andy Donaldson too, he was at Hit the Wall in 2023, and then I followed his Ocean Sevens journey. That was very inspiring. So yeah, I suppose you see people do amazing things on social media and it's inspiring.
And do you have any public goals you're going to share with us now for the future? I'm hoping you're going to say you want to get a car, you want to start going to the pub, and so I can start being faster than you again. Hopefully, you're going to say that, Brian. Come on, I want to hear it.
No, so I've nothing booked. I would love to do the double Irish Triple Crown. So that hasn't been done to my knowledge. So the double North Channel, double Fastnet, and double Galway Bay and Fastnet have yet to be done. But that's something that I have my eyes on. I'd love to do that. So
Okay.
that's where I'm at the moment. But we'll see.
Brian, thank you very much for the conversation today. Congratulations on the several records you've achieved. The ones where you're the first, they can never be taken away. But where there'll be somebody that turned 16 the day before that's probably going to end up younger than you or something. So cherish those first ever records because no one can ever take those away. So thanks
Mm.
again, young man.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Ned. We'll talk to you.
If you've enjoyed this video, we've recorded another 150 of these, and they appear on the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame YouTube channel. I'll put the contact up in a minute, and thank you very much.